Okay. Hey guys, it's me, Tempestio, and today we'll be ranking all the AFL teams based on their improvement from last year to this year. And I've already arranged the teams at the bottom of the ladder at the start to the top 8 teams at the end because it's probably better to go through some of the more disappointing teams of the year so far, even though the year's almost over and we're almost at finals now, before we go into the teams that have massively improved. And there actually are quite a few teams that have not really improved who are near the top. So it'll be an interesting conversation. I know that. So, anyways, let's start. So, the first team we're looking at is the West Coast Eagles. Now, at the moment, the West Coast Eagles. Let me just. Don't know what the hell that was, but at the moment, the West Coast Eagles are 18th on the ladder with a percentage of 48.2. Generally, if you want to get into finals or even have a good season, you want a percentage above 100. They don't even have half of that. Their percentage is at 48.2, and it could even go down even more depending on how the rest of the year goes, which I think it will go down more because they're playing horribly. In some of their worst losses this year, they lost to North Melbourne. They actually beat GWS, which is really weird. Don't know how they did that. They lost to Fremantle. Let's get to the really bad ones. They lost to Melbourne at their home ground. They lost to Melbourne at their home ground. They lost to Port Adelaide. They lost to Richmond. They lost to Hawthorn, who at the time was the bottom of the ladder, by 126 points. They lost to Collingwood by 63. They lost to Adelaide by 722. And they lost to Sydney by 171. These are defeats that are unacceptable, even if you're a bad team. Like North Melbourne, another team that's going bad. I won't go to them just yet because they're next, but they aren't losing by 120 that often. Like 120 is a huge demolishing that is just unacceptable. And West Coast, they're keeping their coach. And last year they only won 2 games. So far they've only won 1 game. And out of all the matches coming up, I say they only have a chance in one of them, which is the North Melbourne game because it is their home game. And even in that game, I don't think they'll win. So, in terms of improvement, they've actually gotten worse. I think maybe they have to sack their coach, maybe they don't. But they're F. Moving on to North Melbourne, I talked about them a bit. But North Melbourne aren't the best to win. They've only won 2 games this year, which were the very first 2 games against, both Perth teams, West Coast and Fremantle. And then ever since then, they've lost. They have not won since. So they almost lost to Melbourne by 100 points, but they were able to claw it back to only a 90-point loss. They lost to 30 points, 70 points, 3 points, 35 points, 6 points. They have had quite a few close calls. North Melbourne, I know their coach, Alistair Clarkson, who was just appointed at the start of this year, he's taken a long leave for a while now. But even with that, and their backup coach is Brett Ratton, and he was a coach for St Kilda last year, and they didn't do too bad. So it's unacceptable what North Melbourne are putting up at the moment. But they have shown signs of improvement, and there are good moments where North do show what they could do, but they don't show up for long. So I think the West Coast Eagles deserve their own tier. No one deserves to be on West Coast tiers because no one's doing what West Coast is doing. Nowhere near. The next team is Hawthorn. Last year, Hawthorn AFL ladder 2022. Man, I'm really bad at these unscripted ones. But last year, Hawthorn were able to get 8 wins and get to 13th. So they didn't do too bad. And North was actually the bottom, not West Coast. But as you can see, Hawthorn didn't do too bad. At the moment, they're currently tracking to be Hawthorn at 16th with only 4 wins. So they're doing worse than last year, but they have shown signs of improvement because they are doing a full rebuild like North Melbourne are. West Coast are the only team that are not doing a rebuild. So Hawthorn aren't doing too bad, and they have shown moments where they can do it. They could have beaten GWS if they were better accuracy. But nonetheless, they're having not the best year, and thus I put them in the E tier as well with North Melbourne. Sydney, grand finalists last year. This year, they're not even going to make finals. They're 15th with only 6 wins, 1 draw, and 9 losses. And the only reason why the percentage is above 100 is because they beat West Coast by 173 points. Without that win, their percentage could be under 100. That's how poorly they've performed this year. And for that, I'm putting them in the D tier. Fremantle, if we went back a couple of weeks, I thought Fremantle would be much higher, but they've just lost so many recently, and now they're at 14th with 7 wins, 9 losses, and 0 draws, and they just lost on their home ground, the Carlton, by 60-something points. So yeah, Fremantle were having a horrible, and Fremantle made it to a semi-final last year. They could have come 4th if it wasn't for Collingwood having 2 more points than them, because Fremantle had a far better percentage, but that draw they got against Richmond screwed them over, so they only came 5th. They were aiming for top 4 this year, and they're not even going to make finals. And they're playing Collingwood, who are top of the ladder. So they stand no chance. And for that, they're also a D tier. Gold Coast Suns, they've just sacked their coach, Stuart Dew, which is pretty disappointing because he actually wasn't doing too bad. He got them 12th last year, their highest ever position finish in a season, with 10 wins, 12 losses, and was actually tracking towards not the worst tally this year. He could have actually beaten it. At the moment, he had 7 wins, 9 losses, with a percentage of 92.5, and he was just sacked, which is sad because he wasn't doing too bad, and he just lost consecutively to the top 2 teams. So it's a pity, but Gold Coast haven't moved much, and that's why I give them a C tier. C tier is just they haven't really changed. Fremantle and Sydney have just performed shockers, and generally they would be in the F tier, but you can't put them anywhere near the F tier when North, Hawthorn, and Eagles exist, and that's why they're in the D tier. Richmond, I don't know what to say. Last year they just snuck into finals with 7th place, 13 wins, 13 wins, 8 losses, and 1 draw. They've already got the 1 draw at the start of the year against Carlton. They have 8 losses and they have 7 wins. So the only way Richmond can improve on or get at least equal on what they did last year is to have no more losses for the rest of the season and win by a lot to get to their percentage from last year of 1 to 1.6. That's not happening. Richmond are not going to win every single game from now, and their percentage is far too low. And thus, I think they haven't gone as well as last year, and thus I give them a D tier. I think they can still make finals, and if they do, I have to move them to C, but until then, it's just a D tier because they just dropped off. They sacked their coach, resigned early in the year, and the new coach isn't doing too bad, but it's not good enough. Carlton, not much to say. They've dropped off. They almost made finals. They lost by percentage, and now they're making a late charge. But some would say too little, too late, and I agree with that. I just don't think, Carlton could win a lot of games coming up and have enough points. The difference is Adelaide, Geelong, GWS, Bulldogs, St Kilda, all the teams that are competing for it are also going to win a lot of games. In other words, it doesn't matter if Carlton win all the games because the other teams will also win. The only way Carlton get win is if they get lucky and the other teams lose. That's the only way. And thus, I think they've gotten worse from last year. They won't make 9th. GWS have improved. They may make finals. They're a B+ team for me. They got a new coach. Last year, they only made it 16th with 6 wins. This year, the year's not even over, and they've already got 8 wins. So they've already passed how many wins they had last year and could make finals. I don't know if they will make finals. Their percentage isn't the best, so they're going to need an extra win. But they can do it. and that's why I give them a B+. Adelaide, massive improvement. That's an A. Last year, they only made it 14th with 8 wins, 14 losses. They've already had 8 wins. So, unless some really bad hoodoo magic happens and they do not win a single game for the rest of the year, they've done a very good job, Adelaide. And you can see what their coach, Matthew Nicks, is doing. So, I trust them. And that's why they get an A. They've improved massively. Geelong, D tier. Even if Geelong do make finals, firstly, they're not making top 4. Secondly, they're not winning the premiership unless something really good happens. So it's already, and they're not winning the minor premiership. So they cannot, it's not possible for them to make an improvement on last year because they've already lost more than they lost completely last year. They only lost 4 times last year. This year, they've already lost 7, and we've still got another 8 games to go. So they've gone horribly this year, and thus they're D tier, even though they could make finals. Bulldogs, C tier, they haven't really changed much. I think they're a very good team. Last year, they came 8th with 12 wins, 10 losses. This year, they've already got 9 wins, 7 losses, and, it's pretty fair to think that they'll win half and half. They'll get somewhere roughly around 12 to 13 wins, and you need 13 wins to make finals, so... And the percentage is pretty bad, so they definitely want to make... If they drop out of finals, they get a worse ranking from me. But at the moment, they're tracking towards finals, so I give them a C tier. Because they haven't really improved, but they haven't gotten worse. St Kilda, improvement. Ross Lyon's done a very good job with them. They were 4-0 at the start of the season. Clearly now, they're not 4-0. They're 9-7, so they have lost more than they've won since then. But they've done a very good job to get to where they are. Very defensive. They're not the best defensive team in the side now, but they were. And they're going very well with a percentage above 100, which is good. And they've already banked in 9 wins, like the Bulldogs. But the Saints have improved, the Bulldogs have not. That's the difference. Essendon, A. They're from last year, only finishing 15th, sacking their coach with only 7 wins, 15 losses. Now they're already at 9 wins, 7 losses. So they cannot get worse already. They can't. Their percentage is not bad at 107.1. So overall, they're not doing too bad. And they've made a massive improvement under their new coach, which is Geelong's coach's brother. Brad Scott. And they're doing a very good job. So they deserve an A tier. Melbourne. It doesn't make sense, but Melbourne, they're 4th right now. Last year, they were 2nd. But how does that warrant a D ranking? Well, they're just not going well. They've got a good percentage because they played really shit teams and belted them. They lost to GWS by 2 points or 3. Like, they're not doing the best. They can't score well. They've lost a lot of their forwards and they've got a few injuries around. And they're just not playing the same way that they used to in 2021 when they won the premiership. They're just not that good anymore. But they're definitely making finals. Top 4 isn't guaranteed, but they probably will get top 4. One way they can guarantee top 4 is if they beat Brisbane this week. I think they will do that, but it's a tough call because Brisbane are playing very well right now, and Melbourne aren't. Melbourne were lucky to get that win against St Kilda in some ways, so I don't think Melbourne. It's a massive decrease. This is a tier list on how teams have improved or not. This is not how are they going well on the ladder, because otherwise they would do it based on the ladder. Brisbane, they're going much better than last year. Not in terms of ladder position, because last year in ladder position, take that back, they actually are doing very well in ladder position as well. Last year they were 6th, now they're 3rd. It's not guaranteed, but I think top 4 should be fine to bet on them, and they're going very well offensively and a bit defensively. So they've got nothing to worry about. Then they'll get finals. Power last year started 0-5. They lost their first 5 games, and they only were able to get to 11th with 10 wins and 12 losses. They've already beaten that with 8 games to go. They've already had 14 wins and 2 losses. Granted, one of them was against their old buddies Adelaide, and the other one was against Collingwood. But they've had massive improvement, so they deserve an A+ improvement tier ranking. And Collingwood, 4th to 1st place, doesn't seem like much of an improvement, but they've improved everywhere. Like, the percentage is the real, like, you can tell where the real improvement is. Last year, their percentage was only 104, which was the lowest in all of the top 8, and even lower than some outside the top 8. This year, their percentage is the best this year so far with 137.1, and they're doing very well, I think. And they could win the premiership, they may not, but they're going very well, and the minor premiership is either theirs or Port's. So they've made a massive improvement, and that's why I give Collingwood also. I think Essendon actually did a bit better than Adelaide, but yeah. Okay, maybe not. Okay, point being, this is what I think with my rankings on how well each team has improved this year. So yeah. Anyway, guys, it's me, Tempestio. See you guys.
10 subs for the win. Let's fucking go.